What do we have here today? Would you look at that? Surprise, surprise, patch notes. Okay, let's go over the patch notes, guys. I think we should go over them together and give it some thoughts. So let's talk about these arena keys. I was quite surprised when I first saw this because I saw that there's some YouTube videos about doing this, and I kind of had it on my peripheral vision. It's like, oh, okay, this thing exists. But I didn't realize that people are actually using this extensively, and MG players are going to COF, creating a second character as COF, and because you literally cannot share anything except for gold, gold is shared between your different accounts. Somehow there's players that spam this on their COF character and then get gold to trade on their MG character. And somehow that's so optimal that it requires nerfing. I didn't even realize that that's a thing. I legitimately did not know. So I was quite surprised when I read this. You guys think this is related to RMT? Fair enough. If it's hitting if RMT is a big issue, and by the way, since I logged into the game, look at this garbage. I logged into the game 5 minutes ago, and there's already some scumbags with their RMT nonsense. The RMT stuff is a problem, so that's very sad to see. But you know, if it's addressing their RMT, I can dig it. I can get behind it. Just because I wasn't aware of it doesn't mean that it should not be happening. Let me just, I guess, finish the thought on the keys. If it's addressing some of the RMT stuff, sure, I can get behind that. I do not buy this argument one bit. This was done to remove the burden of optimization on MG players feeling like they needed to level up COF and use arena key prophecies to farm gold effectively. I have an incentive to go MG to get the best items in the game. If I want to optimize my items today, pick anything that you want for OP. I'm never ever going to find it as a COF player. The optimal choice for me, if I were to go for like optimization, is to go MG. And that's not something they're going to address. So the optimization of players in different factions is not a valid argument here whatsoever. I can get behind a real money transaction argument. That I'm not going to challenge, and I'm going to fully support and endorse. Let's nerf these to hinder the ability of RMT people from making money, right? So that's great for me. But you know, this is not cool. Not to mention that I think we should want there to be advantages for various factions, right? Like one faction should have an advantage at certain something versus the other faction. And so that leads me to my next point here. Prevention for COF bonuses from doubling XP tomes rewards for monoliths. I don't understand this one. When you take this out, in my mind, COF was the better faction to play early game with, to level up and to get good items in the first like 20 hours of the game. But when you take this out, COF has no advantages. COF has zero advantages at this point in time. There's no point or certain item type that you can farm more efficiently as a COF player. Boss specific uniques you cannot get with COF efficiently. Like it's a nightmare to farm boss specific uniques as COF. The only argument that I can make here is if we look at big picture here. So here we're seeing a lot of nerfs to COF. My thought process is that we just haven't seen the MG nerfs, and we haven't seen the adjustments to MG, and maybe they cannot be implemented mid-cycle. And I think with 1.1, I expect a lot of changes to MG because MG has some structural problems. Like I've talked about in the past, before you get rank 8, there's infinite supply and zero demand before any player is rank 8. That creates a broken market when your supply and demand are so grossly imbalanced. I don't think the ability to buy or sell items should be a function of your MG tier. But again, I just want to say it's possible that there are many changes coming in the future. And I genuinely believe that the changes that are necessary for MG cannot be implemented in 1.0. They're just too big, too impactful to be rolling them out right now. So I'm not going to go and say, okay, COF bad, MG OP, because I do suspect there are changes coming. It's just they cannot be rolled out right now. Both sides definitely need fine-tuning. So I'm happy to accept, okay, maybe this is the fine-tuning on the COF side. But I truly hope there's fine-tuning coming on the MG side. That's what I'm talking about. Let's keep the big picture in mind, guys. So Ghostflame is getting fixed, where Spirit Kindling was giving you infinite ignite stacks and infinite ward. And then Dive Bomb, not yet, but it's coming next week. Cloud Gatherer to only apply to any individual smoke bomb at one time. Okay, so I think these are good changes. It sounds like they're wrecking the servers. And so let's talk about the award bug thingy. For those that don't know, the Profane Veil Vampiric Pool node right here. Portion of minion health to ward gain 4%. This states 4%. But the way it was implemented, somebody accidentally added an extra 0. And it's actually 40%. We have a little clip of us validating that. We did the math on stream. It adds up to exactly 40%. So yeah, clearly unintended consequences of code, and QA missed it. So they're taking the stance that even though this is a clear bug, clear unintended overpowered game output right here, much stronger than intended, it's not causing performance issues. And so it will instead be changed with the next cycle patch. But what's interesting is they opened it to discussion. They said the stance is of course open to feedback. It's not carved in stone. If there's a high demand to fix bugs or make changes that affect balance mid-cycle, we can adjust. So I think we should do a vote. I think we should have on-stream vote. Let's see who wants this fixed and who doesn't want it fixed. Because I can't speak on behalf of everybody. I don't know what everybody wants. So let's do a little vote. How many people do we have on stream? Let's have a poll. I'm not going to share my thoughts before the poll. I want to see what everybody thinks. I don't want to bias the poll. Thank you. All right. I think the vote is up. The poll is up. Should bugs be fixed mid-cycle? Yes. I don't care. No. So together with the YouTube votes, this is the final count, guys. We have a tally and we have 35 people, 35 votes said let's fix the bug. 13 votes said don't fix the bug. And 10 votes are just chilling, enjoying life. Not letting the little things in life take them down, you know? Those are the people that I aspire to be more like. Those are the people that live a beautiful life. Anyways, again, I want to highlight that my channel is going to have a bias towards Warlock players. So we're going to have more Warlock players benefiting from the bug than people who do not benefit from the bug. And despite that bias, we still have an overwhelming vote towards fixing the bug. 35 for, 13 against. Just make it an intended feature. Add the 0 into the class, into the skill. That's one way to fix the bug. See, we have Tuveyo or 123 thinking outside the box. He's saying the easiest fix to the bug is just to change the tooltip. You put an extra 0 in there and the bug is fixed. Now that's thinking outside the box. I love it. Good times. So, I personally think that they should fix the bug as well. I voted a yes as well. For me, there's a bunch of different reasons. I made that one build that was the first popular build, I guess, that utilizes it. And then a lot of people adopted that build. And I'm not sure how, but it seems like now it's almost like, oh, Curse is the bug build guy. Which is hilarious to me. Because when I released that build, there was no way for me to know whether there's bugs in there or not. I mean, I suppose there was, but it was still so early in the season. I'm not going to waste my time going out of my way to double check if it's exactly 40%. A lot of this stuff works very finicky. That was funny to me. And not to mention that if I fire up Wraithlord right now and I get the crazy damage numbers from Wraithlord, am I going to assume it's bugged? I don't know, man. In both cases, I correctly assumed it's broken. You know, I saw the ward numbers. I'm like, this is silly. These are crazy ward numbers. But let's just have some fun with it. It's in the game. Let's see what we can do with it. If I fire up Wraithlord, I'm going to be like, yeah, these are crazy broken numbers. These should not be in the game this way. But let's just have some fun with it, I guess. Same with literally anything Falconer. Everything is... It's not even one build for Falconer. Literally everything has an extra 0 in it, but somehow there's no bugs there. Bugs. I would love to see a lot more than just the Veil bug get addressed, because clearly we have extra 0 problems elsewhere in the game as well. Now, if they just fix the Veil bug and nothing else, am I going to be grumpy? No, not really. In fact, I'm going to be happy, because the Veil bug is not what makes my build strong. My build is going to be likely the most optimized way to run Warlock, even after the bug fix. Overall, I do believe the build will be best in slot for Warlock, even after we drop an extra 0 on that ward gain. So I would be happy to see a bug fix just to highlight how powerful the build is, despite the reduction in ward. That's my take on it. And also, so I don't have to deal with the nonsense about bugs anymore. It's kind of a waste of my time, honestly. It also is annoying that it's hard for me to make builds with Warlock, because you get very pigeonholed. Even if you exclude the ward generation there, Profane Veil is too powerful of a utility skill, and it pigeonholes you into how you want to make your builds. There is a reason why my crit Bone Curse build is using Profane Veil in the exact same fashion that the other build is using it. And it's not the ward gen. It's not the ward gen. It's the damage and the 100% evasion on top of the ward gen. All three of these things make Veil incredibly overpowered. Not overpowered, let's say, but incredibly powerful. And it kind of makes it difficult for me to make builds that are not Veil based. So it suffers from the problem that Lich suffers. You have to run Wraith Form, you have to run Death Seal. You have to run both of them. Similar with Warlock, you kind of have to run Profane Veil, even if they reduce the ward gen. So anyways, what makes Veil do good damage? Here, I'll fire it up. So Veil in itself does not do damage, but Veil buffs every other skill, the damage you get from every other skill while you're in Veil. You get 50% more damage here, and you get 24% more damage on Doom Herald. So that's together 86% more damage while you're in Veil. So you're doing 86% more damage while in Veil. Why would you not try to optimize your build around DPS cycles that are Veil based? Every one of your DPS cycles should be Veil based, which is why Vampiric Pool is a must have, because it increases the duration of your Veil. Forget the ward gen, like I said, forget that bug. Just the fact that you can increase the duration from a pathetic 2 seconds to set, let's say, a respectable 6 seconds. And on top of that, 100% evasion. It's just too many benefits. Granted, I've been the best at min-maxing around those benefits and spotting them early on, which is why my build is the gold standard right now. But once you realize that these are best in slot for Warlock, it pigeonholes your build-making process, and I'm not a fan of that. I like to have many different options when it comes to build making, and right now I feel like I don't have very many options. I think Warlock is in a decent place. If they drop the ward bug, it's definitely going to be inferior to Falconer. I can almost guarantee that. That doesn't mean that Warlock is weak. It doesn't mean that Warlock is not slightly OP. I do believe Warlock is probably a bit OP, but Falconer is just way, way, way OP. Yeah, the only other thing I would mention is, if we look at the leaderboard, there are many Warlocks. And obviously that's because of the Veil bug and because of the Ghostflame bug. Those two bugs have put a lot of Warlocks at the top here. But we also have to recognize that there are many Falconers reaching silly number of waves, right? And these Falconer builds, I would say, require just as much bug fixing. And maybe you don't want to call it a bug. I call it bugged. These are bugged builds. Just as bugged as this build. If this build can reach 2200 and this build can reach 2200, both are bugged. You know, I don't care whether there's an extra 0 and it's obvious that there's an extra 0. I think all of these need to get addressed. That's the only other note I would say. I'm happy for Veil bug to be fixed, but I think this is why ESG are so reluctant, by the way, guys, is because there are so many broken things in the game right now. If they fix Veil, and this is not Veil actually, but if they fix Veil right here, SC2, shout out. If they fix Veil, well, people are going to be like, well, wait a second, there's something that isn't Veil, The top Veil build is 1600 wave. Let's keep that in mind. The top Falconer build is 2200. Is this using a bug? I don't even know. Maybe it's using the smoke bomb bug, but maybe it isn't. The rank 1 build is using Ghostflame bug. So this already got fixed today. This is gone. This bug is gone. And they're saying they're not going to fix this bug. They're not going to fix this bug. And what I'm saying is they're in a really tough position because the whole community is crying about this bug getting fixed. But nobody's crying about this bug or this build getting fixed. And it's going to be brutally obvious how bad the balance of the game is if they actually fix Veil and then every single top ladder thing is Falconer, and then we have the same story all over again. It's like, okay, now we need to fix Falconer. Now everybody's crying about Falconer. And then everybody's crying about something else. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's the tricky position that they're in. And I personally would like them to fix all of these bugs. But I think there needs to be a healthier discussion that goes beyond just Veil bug. I think the ladder is also pretty silly, but it is a good way to gauge some of the tankiest and the highest DPS builds in the game. I personally don't like it. I don't enjoy it playing Arena, and I think everybody on the test realm, I'm pretty sure, told them Falconer is insane. Falconer is absolutely busted broken. And they did some nerfs right before release, but it wasn't enough. The problem was they did those nerfs so close to release, nobody had a chance to test the new build. So nobody had any idea of how strong Falconer was. Alright, and now I want to share some final thoughts. The stream footage was from yesterday, which was patch day. And so today I wanted to summarize my thoughts and add a little bit more nuance that I hadn't thought through enough yesterday on this whole topic. The first thing I wanted to mention is the actual impact of Profane Veil bug getting fixed. From an itemization standpoint, it's going to have some impact, but it's not going to delete the builds that utilize Vampiric Pool. If you stack enough minion health on your items, you can achieve a similar effect to what you're getting today. Obviously, the ward numbers are going to be smaller, but the performance isn't going to be significantly weaker. And it's still likely going to be the best in slot Warlock build. And I am mentioning that because clearly EHG are concerned about the player base that has invested a lot of time into getting the right items to make that build work and have enjoyed the process of getting there. The fact that this bug fix won't delete the build, I think, should be part of the consideration for EHG. If we look at another bug fix example, and I think Perry brought that earlier today in his video, with Endurance protecting your mana in the Mind Over Matter builds, I genuinely believe that that was a really poor development decision to delete that from the game. If you look at the outcome of that, it completely removed that build from the game. It was a build that was not oppressively overpowering. The build was clunky, it was slow at clearing, it was slow at doing most things in the game. Yes, it could reach crazy high corruption numbers, but it did so only for the most patient players. To make things worse, that bug fix coincided, I think, with the release of Rune Master, or at least it was around that same time, and the result was that Sork had one less viable build, and it was the one build that actually worked around the Sork identity of high mana stacking. And the class was so embarrassingly weak, it was completely overshadowed by Rune Master. So I strongly believe that there are many cases in game development where things that were not originally intended by the developers should become features of the game. Some of the best and most entertaining features of StarCraft 1 Brood War were never intended by the devs, or were bugs, which later on became pivotal to high-tier Brood War gameplay. Which is why I'm going to one more time highlight the importance of nuance and why it is more important to focus on broken and oppressively strong mechanics in the game rather than obsessing over what is intended and what isn't intended. Life and game dev is complicated, and intents change and should change as people grow. A good example of evolving intent is most likely going to be EHG changing their stance on the Profane Veil bug and fixing it thanks to the overwhelming alignment of community feedback. That is certainly one area that I would hope to see them change their intentions. A follow-up to that change of intent that I'd love to see would be to label a lot of the other broken builds as unintended. Anyways, let's just go play some last TPO, guys. Take it easy, leave the devs alone, voice your concerns, voice your opinions, but always remember that the devs are people and you should treat them with respect. Gochiso sama deshita.